political icon and pundit Roger Stone. Stone has served as a senior campaign aide to 3 Republican presidents. He is a New York Times best-selling author and a longtime friend and advisor of President Donald Trump. As an outspoken libertarian, Stone has appeared on thousands of broadcasts, spoken at countless venues, and lectured before the prestigious Oxford Political Union and the Cambridge Union Society. Due to his 4+ decades in the political and cultural arena, Stone has become a pop culture icon. And now, here's your host, Roger Stone.
Welcome, I'm Roger Stone, and yes, you are back in the Stone Zone. Well, they call it Super Tuesday for a reason. Donald Trump made history again last night, sweeping the primaries in as many as 10 states, and as we have learned only minutes ago, driving his final rival, Nikki Haley, out of the race. Here to help me break this and other political developments down is my colleague, Troy Smith from slingshot.news. Troy, welcome back into the Stone Zone.
Roger, as always, it's an honor to be here. I want to kick things off tonight by getting, I saw the pictures this morning, and I think we have some footage here of you walking into Mar-a-Lago last night, and we want to hear how that was, how that went, and your kind of experience there, because it's so unique, and I think people are probably eager to hear about that.
Yeah, we can roll that stuff. It was absolutely electric last night. It's interesting the difference between President Trump's announcement in the exact same room, which was a great night, but a night filled with hope, a night that was unclear in terms of where things would go. People may not remember this, but many people thought Florida Governor Ron DeSantis was going to pose a serious challenge to President Trump. That, of course, did not materialize. Last night was something special, however. Uh, it was, I think, obvious from very early in the evening that Trump would win virtually everywhere. But some of these margins and the Republican turnout is a very good sign for the general election.
Oh, exactly, Roger, and we can go right into that now because it's such a it was such an interesting turnout last night. And Roger, just wanted your thoughts immediately. I saw that President Trump received 1.8 million votes in the Texas Republican primary yesterday, where we had multiple guests that have been on this show. Uh, Mr. Covey, and of course, just overall success in the state of Texas. So, just real quick, Roger, what's your opinion? I mean, 1.8 million votes in Texas. It shows that in a state that's on the border, that a lot of people are talking about immigration and key Republican issues. The turnout is really there. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, very pleased that Covey, who appeared on this show, beat the House Speaker, Phelan, as they call him. That was a major upset, possible only with the endorsement of President Donald Trump. Also, seeing Brandon Gill, who was with us just days ago, win his primary. Was somewhat disappointed in House District 33, where Katrina Pearson, who testified against President Trump in the January 6th investigation, who openly supported DeSantis and trashed Donald Trump, reinvented herself suddenly as a Trump supporter. And although she did not win that nomination, she is now in a runoff. We're going to have a lot more about her, not today, but in the days between now and the runoff, particularly focusing on her arrest for shoplifting. I mean, among other great qualities. But overall, it was an amazing evening. It's interesting. When I was leaving the event, there was a gaggle of reporters, and they didn't want to focus on Trump's sweeping, indeed historic wins. All they cared about was Vermont. Well, what about Vermont? I said, what about Vermont? Well, it looks like Nikki Haley won Vermont. I believe that's one delegate, maybe two. So what? What about Vermont? I mean, it is so typical of the fake news media and the jackals in the media. They don't focus on the millions of votes that Donald Trump got. They immediately focus on the negative. So, Troy, what's the latest on Nikki Haley?
Well, I believe we have video here that we could roll this morning of Nikki Haley dropping out of the race this morning after her embarrassment. And last I checked, President Trump is just around 1,000 delegates, and Haley's way behind. She has no path to victory at this point. It's really it's sad. So I think we have a clip here we can roll of Nikki Haley talking this morning and officially dropping out of the race.
Well, that is a fairly conciliatory comment on her part. Unclear, of course, whether she's actually going to endorse President Trump. I would not consider that an endorsement. Very similar, by the way, to when Florida Governor Ron DeSantis got out of the race. What he said was, it is now clear that a majority of Republicans want Trump to be the nominee. He never actually said, I support Donald Trump. And of course, as you know, he's basically been running a shadow campaign since then, taking pot shots at Trump here and there, obviously hoping against hope that Trump will get hit by a bus or somehow otherwise not be able to finish this race. I think he is dreaming. A very key point here, though, Troy, and that is Trump hovers near 1,000 votes. It takes roughly 1,200 votes to actually cinch the nomination. How sweet the irony that Donald Trump will win the nomination when he sweeps the home state of Florida. Now, that primary coming up on March 12th still has a contest between former President Donald Trump and Governor Ron DeSantis, who never removed his name from the ballot. So, this is going to be an excellent opportunity for Floridians to express their support for the president and frankly, to maybe remind Governor DeSantis that he ought to stick to his knitting and start to focus on the problems here in Florida. The governor's approval rating is now below 50. We have an insurance crisis that is horrific. Officer Sal Greco was telling me the other day that his car insurance, which was previously under $1,000, they now want a $16,000 premium. It blew him away. It doesn't matter whether it's homeowners insurance or automobile insurance. All of insurance here in Florida is skyrocketed out of sight. We're also having a utility rate crisis in this state. Uh, electricity rates have gone up 22%, the highest single increase in the history of Florida. For senior citizens on fixed income, that's quite a bite. Uh, Perhaps this is related to the $9.5 million that DeSantis took from Florida Power and Light and its various subsidiaries. It is DeSantis's appointees who are the regulators who have to approve these rate hikes. But it's pretty clear to me that by the 12th, Donald Trump will be the de facto nominee of the Republican Party. I do know that he very much last night kept his fire focused solely on Joe Biden, never mentioned Nikki Haley. And I think that he understands the need to contrast the 4 years of Donald Trump with the 4 years or 3 years and change of Joe Biden. I did a brief interview for a local TV station, and they said, "Well, aren't you concerned that people are going to refocus on the things they don't like about Trump?" This was in reaction to a question regarding the fact that Trump is leading in all the polls. I said, "No, actually, I think we want a comparison, whether it is gasoline prices or inflation or crime or drugs, both caused by our open border, whether it is a foreign policy in which we ship $280 billion a year to Ukraine, where we are closer and closer to a world war in two different theaters. This strategy of financing both Israel and Iran, which is, as you know, de facto funding of both Hamas and Hezbollah. I'm happy to have that comparison of the Trump years and the Biden years. I want to have that comparison. Look, if Joe Biden is the nominee, and I have my reservations, which I've talked about on this show, but if he is the nominee, I want at least 4 debates, don't you?
Absolutely, Roger. We should have public debates. And also, we should, I mean, Trump has called on Biden to take a cognitive test, Roger. I think that I think they both should take one, to be honest with you, because I have no doubt in my mind. We've talked about this before here on the show. You said you would have no doubt that Trump would pass a cognitive test. Let's have them both take one, and let's see Biden pass one in public. And let's look. And you mentioned something there, Roger. You mentioned that the media outside of Mar-a-Lago last night was talking about Vermont, and I wanted to highlight here real quickly. At no point, when you look at the results of Vermont, do you see a sweeping victory for Nikki Haley? I have the votes right in front of me. We'll put these up after here, so you guys can see them. It's 36,030 votes for Nikki Haley to 33,140. Yet in the states where Trump won, the margins, as we talked about, Roger, I mean, it was 1.8 million to 400,000 in Texas. So sweeping victories for Trump across the Republican Party. And also, Roger, as you mentioned there, the debates are very important because the independent area, this voter base, that's where both Biden and Trump seem to be making their play right now. And the polling is pretty overwhelming to show that those independents support Trump. And I think it has a lot to do with what you were just talking about, comparing and contrasting the 4 years of Trump and the 4 years of Biden. I think 4 debates would give us the ultimate comparison of putting these two men next to each other and letting the American public decide who sounds better, who's more coherent, who's more capable, who do you want as your leader? And I think the answer would be very clear if we just put them next to each other. Do you expect the Biden administration to do everything they can and the Biden campaign to do everything they can to stop these debates from happening, Roger?
I can't see any circumstance under which they agree to a debate. They will come up with some technicality. I think it remains to be seen who else is in this race. In other words, is there a Libertarian Party candidate? Is there a Green Party candidate? Does that candidate get on the ballot in enough states to theoretically win 270 electoral votes? If so, well, then I personally believe they should be in the debate. And then what of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? Does he get on the ballot in enough states? Biden and Trump will both make a calculation as to whether they want him in or out. Probably a little early to do that. But in the end, I don't think Joe Biden will debate Donald Trump because he knows he cannot stand up to him. It could actually be one of the most entertaining things we've ever seen. One development yesterday that is not at all surprising, Adam Schiff, without any question, the biggest huckster, the single greatest con man, one of the greatest congenital liars in congressional history, came in first in the California jungle primary for the U.S. Senate. Now, let me explain how this works. California has changed their law, so there are no longer any party primaries. In other words, Republicans and Democrats don't have an individual primary to select their nominees who then face off in November. Instead, they have what they call the jungle primary, in which all candidates of every single party all run in one election, and the two top vote getters win. Now, I don't want to say they have a broken system, but this morning I learned about one of the candidates for the U.S. Senate, a woman named Charlita Barnett, and Charlita's name was on the ballot. In English, they said she was a Republican, but Charlita Bassett, pardon me, I mispronounced that. But in Chinese, they said she was a Democrat. Way to go, California Secretary of State. Although I would say that Charlita Bassett is lucky because there were 27 duly filed candidates and some of them didn't get on the ballot at all. So much for our democracy. Now, it is true that Adam Schiff is going to go to a runoff with former baseball great Steve Harvey. I am sadly, because I can do math and I know something about politics, there were two other ultra liberal Democrats in this race. They included Katie Porter, who represents an Orange County district, a very, very prodigious, progressive congresswoman and fundraiser, and also Barbara Lee from the Bay Area, an African American congresswoman. So if you look at the total number of Democrats and you add the total for Democratic county candidates, it would indicate that Adam Schiff may be headed to the Senate. Even as a senator, however, that will not change the facts that Adam Schiff is a congenital liar who can't keep his lies straight. And he likes to come back and recycle the same lies again. Let's take a look at this video.
In which the Russians offered help, which we know they did. The campaign accepted help, which we know they did. The Russians then delivered help, which we know they did.
There is circumstantial evidence of collusion. The case is more than that, and I can't go into the particulars, but there is more than circumstantial evidence now. So,
you've said on more than one occasion that you've seen ample evidence of the Trump campaign's Russia collusion. Last March, you said you had more than circumstantial evidence of treasonous collusion with Russia.
I've certainly said that there's ample evidence of collusion.
Can you agree that there has been no evidence of collusion, coordination, or conspiracy that has been presented thus far between the Trump campaign and Russia?
No, I don't agree with that at all. I think there's plenty of evidence of collusion or conspiracy.
But we do know this. The Russians offered help. The campaign accepted help. The Russians gave help, and the president made full use of that help. And that is pretty damning.
Reviewing the evidence that I have.
No, sorry, Adam. The Russians offered no help. The campaign accepted no help, and the campaign used no help. This is typical of the antics of Adam Schiff, kind of standard operating procedure. He's a charlatan who frequently makes explosive public charges. They get lapped up by his allies in the media, but then he can't substantiate any of them. So in March of 2017, he told Chuck Todd, as you saw in Meet the Press, that evidence of collusion was at best circumstantial. Todd said, but Schiff said, "Oh, actually, no, Chuck. I can tell you the case is more than that. I can't go into particulars. That's because there are no particulars. But there's more than circumstantial evidence now. I will say there is evidence that is not circumstantial and is very much worthy of investigation." Okay, Adam, produce it. In November, during a House Intelligence Committee hearing, Schiff said the evidence for Trump-Russia collusion, what is clear is the Kremlin repeatedly told the campaign it had dirt on Clinton and offered to help him, and at least one top Trump official, the president's own son, accepted. In truth, Donald Trump Jr. received nothing from the Russian lawyer who sought a meeting with him, and she turned out to actually be an employee of Fusion GPS. She was briefed prior to that meeting by Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS. That's the left-wing research outfit that basically hooked up the phony Steele dossier, and he debriefed her after the meeting. In other words, it was a setup. No, Congressman Schiff, Donald Trump Jr. received nothing whatsoever from this woman Russian lawyer. Schiff ignores all of that, of course. Then in October 10th of 2017, Schiff said once again, "We have all of these facts in chronology. You have to believe that these are all isolated incidents, not connected to each other. That doesn't make rational sense. We do know this: the Russians offered help, the campaign accepted help, the Russians gave help, and the president made full use of that help." What help, Adam? That's the same recycled lie. Let's try your favorite lie. Paul Manafort gave polling data to a man named Konstantin Kalimnik, who you and others claim is a was a Russian intelligence asset. Well, first of all, Manafort didn't have any proprietary polling information as of the date that you claim this happened. And it's absolutely clear that Konstantin Kilimnik, who previously worked for Senator John McCain, was not a Russian intelligence asset, but in fact was actually a U.S. intelligence asset. This guy just never stops. He says again in February of 2018, there's certainly a lot of evidence of collusion between the Russian campaign, the Trump campaign in Russia in terms of ethical violations and acting against the interests of the United States. The evidence is ample and in the public view. No, actually, it's not. Then finally, on ABC's The View on March 3rd, 2018, Schiff said he finally had to concede that the panel he co-chaired had seen no evidence that the Trump campaign colluded with the Russian government. Yet again, on April 15th of that year, on ABC, Schiff made a point to say that it is simply not true that there was no evidence of the 2016 campaign for Trump colluding with Russia. Schiff, who is ever recycling the same nonsense, came up completely and totally empty-handed. Finally, he changed his tune yet again, saying on NBC's Meet the Press, as if to clarify his own many contradictory statements. He said at the outset of the investigation there was some circumstantial evidence. No, think back, Adam. We just saw the video. You said it was more than circumstantial evidence. This guy is a four-flushing phony. He lies as easily as he gets out of bed. And I have to conclude that he's probably going to go to the U.S. Senate, where he will continue his demagoguery, his Trump derangement syndrome, and his many lies. Adam Schiff. We're going to keep you posted on that runoff, but just if you assume that the Democratic votes garnered by Katie Porter, by Congresswoman Barbara Lee, now most likely go to a liberal Democrat Adam Schiff, I think Mr. Harvey has his hands full. Troy, thoughts on watermelon head, pencil neck, Adam Schiff.
Well, Roger, here's the thing. Adam Schiff does this routinely. He has committee hearings where he gets access to very important and not public information. This is private information that is supposed to be kept behind closed doors. If it was supposed to be out in the open, it would be out in the open. He goes into closed door hearings, and he's on the Judiciary Committee. He's been on many committees for many years now. He's one of the top ranking Democrats in the House. And he goes out to the press, much like Dan Goldman, who I would say, in the House, if you wanted a competition between liars, it would be Schiff and Goldman would really be at the top of that list. They go into these closed door hearings and they come out into the press and they just flat out lie. And there's no repercussions for that. And I think, if we want to strengthen our ability to deal with issues, especially as it pertains to the House, Adam Schiff should be removed from his committees. I know he's leaving, but at the same time, why do we have these people, Dan Goldman included, any of these people that go into closed door hearings, they turn around to the press, they totally lie about whatever happened. The result of that should be you're removed from your committee. It's ridiculous that they keep getting to go in there, get the information so they have the badge so that they can go to the press to lie. It's ridiculous, Roger. And don't think for a second that this doesn't have something to do with this guy's outside of politics, money streams, because when he goes on those news networks, when he uses this false information to promote himself and his campaign, he uses that to promote books or whatever, he's doing. They always have shows or podcasts or something stupid. It's about self-promotion, and he's undermining the truth in the American people to do it. He should be removed from every committee he serves on. It's a disgrace.
Well, as you know, he's already been censured by this House, this current House. You're absolutely right about his constant use of classified information. When I testified before the House Intelligence Committee, I still maintain that I never made any misstatement that was material. Schiff is under the House rules not supposed to discuss my testimony, but within an hour, he's already predicting that I will be charged with perjury. Now, how could that be? I'll tell you why. because once the Mueller investigators went to multiple judges and told them that they had probable cause to charge Roger Stone with treason, uh, conspiracy against the United States, money laundering, counterfeiting, mail fraud, wire fraud, unauthorized access to a government computer, uh, uh, aiding and abetting a felony before and after the fact, none of which they found evidence of course. What then happened is Mueller's investigators, in violation of law, shared all my emails with Adam Schiff and his friend Eric Swalwell, and then they were able to fashion the meaningless gotcha questions that they ultimately came back and charged me with. Again, none of them hid any underlying claim. Yes, I did say on a given date that WikiLeaks would drop their information on Hillary Clinton, would publish that. I produced the committee a text message from New York comedian Randy Credico for 24 hours previously, giving me that information. Shows I didn't get it from WikiLeaks or from some Russian, but of course that was entirely ignored. Adam Schiff will come to no good. He's waited a long time for this seat. He wanted it when Dianne Feinstein was supposed to retire. He was passed over when she elected to run again. Now he finally gets a chance to run for it. He wanted it when Kamala Harris vacated it to become vice president. So, look, I think he's going to be as dangerous in the Senate as he is in the House. But, when you are a criminal at heart, when you are a congenital liar at heart, he'll get caught breaking the Senate rules and the law as well. We will keep you posted on that New York runoff. Now would be an excellent time to remind all of our viewers that we really couldn't exist here at the Stone Zone without your help. And our principal sponsor continues to be our great friends at mypillow.com. Now, mypillow.com is, of course, the company of Mike Lindell, the country's leading free speech advocate, the country's leading election integrity advocate. He too is under attack by the deep state and by lawyers for these major voting machine companies who really want to avoid discovery at all costs. So you can help us here at the Stone Zone. You can also help Mike Lindell and his great company by going to mypillow.com right now and using promo code STONE. Now, if you thought that My Pillow was just about bedding or just about pillows, well, then you haven't visited there recently. Yes, the revolutionary new My Pillow 2.0 with the built-in cooling technology can be ordered right now at a deep discount. This pillow really has changed my life. Mike Lindell will tell you that a good night's sleep is about temperature and height. And this pillow doesn't have to constantly be turned over through the night so that you get the cool side of it. But you should not ignore the towels, for example, the incredibly absorbent, luxurious terry cloth towels that are now on special, or the men and women's bathrobes, another one of my favorite products, or of course the dog beds. We're big animal lovers here at the Stone Zone. Your pets, dogs or cats, can rest or sleep in luxury, at the same time protecting your floors, your rugs, your furniture. So I urge you to check out the dog beds. And of course, if you're going for the dog beds, take a look at the pet blankets. There you see the pet blankets, which allow your fur babies to remain warm and cozy at night. Mrs. Stone and I crank down the air conditioning, but this assures that our pets, Mimi and Pee-wee, have a warm and snug night's sleep. So if you love the animals, if you want to support free speech and everything we do here at the Stone Zone. Please go to My Pillow. You see it right there in the corner with promo code STONE. We deeply, deeply appreciate your support at My Pillow, and God will bless you for it. Okay, Troy, I saw a very powerful interview with Joe Pags, the radio personality, who, by the way, is going to join me on WABC Radio this weekend. He's had two really powerful interviews in the last couple of days. An interview yesterday with President Donald Trump himself. Haven't had a chance to see that one yet, but I am. Also, one with a woman who's in the news, Tulsi Gabbard, who is being widely discussed as a potential vice presidential candidate. Let's run that first bite of Tulsi Gabbard and see what she had to say.
Tulsi, did the Democrat Party, well, I know it's a dumb question, Democrat Party did change, but did you also have to change? Did you change a bit, whereas you weren't as liberal or far left as you thought you were, and you realized that that party probably hasn't been your party for a long time?
Yeah, Joe, I've always been an independent-minded person for as long as I've been involved with politics, but just generally in life. I think it's important for us to be able to, witness what's going on around us, learn from different perspectives, learn from our own experience. So, of course, there have been some things that I've seen my own eyes opened on over the years and changed my position accordingly. But I will tell you, by and large, the Democratic Party of today is completely unrecognizable from the party that I joined. Unrecognizable even the party of Bill Clinton or Barack Obama. The party that exists today is under control of this elite cabal of woke warmongers. And frankly, the Republican Party has also shifted. And this is often talked about publicly in the media. And I think it's in the process of shifting more, where the Democrat Party now is one that shuts down free speech, that discourages any kind of dissent or challenging of the positions and the narrative that the Democrat elite have chosen to take on as their cause. Whereas the Republican Party, which some people don't like, is pretty robust with debate and different ideas and people challenging the warmongers within their own party and in the Biden-Harris administration,
Right.
which to me, we should encourage that. We should encourage that kind of discussion, debate, even disagreement if it comes to that, because we're better and stronger as a country when we do that.
Yeah, very, very strong performance. We have another great bite of Tulsi Gabbard. Let's roll that, and then Troy and I will kick it around.
People ask me this every time. When you talk to Tulsi Gabbard again, ask her, is she a Republican? Tulsi, are you a Republican? Are you a conservative?
I'm an
Are you okay? So,
I'm an independent. I'm an independent who loves this country and will always put our country first. Period.
Okay, so you don't have a party designation anymore. Independent thinker, independent everything.
Not at the moment.
Okay, because you're on the short list. You know this. Are you going to be the vice? I asked Ben Carson this, and Dr. Carson laughed at when I did. Are you going to be the vice president? Would you be open to that?
I didn't hear Ben Carson's response, but my guess is it may be similar. I really like him. He's a great guy. I've had a chance to spend some time with him and his wife.
Yeah.
I want to serve our country in the best way that I can and where I can make the most impact. So I'm not chasing a job or a title or anything like that. I'm chasing the opportunity to be able to serve my country.
Very, very impressive. I think actually her status as a former Democrat, now an independent, is attractive. I think it's one of the reasons why she should be considered. Now, I think she needs to join the Republican Party, and I would do that whether she becomes a candidate, whether she is selected as a candidate for vice president or whether she is not and President Trump selects somebody else. Let me be very clear. I haven't endorsed any candidate for vice president. I've talked about the strengths and weaknesses of many candidates. I love, for example, and I saw him last night, I love Byron Donalds. He is a strong, articulate Republican, a true supporter of the Make America Great agenda. He'd make a great vice president. Someday he'll make a great governor or a great president. But as you know, and as I've had to say on this show on numerous occasions, the 12th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution essentially specifically prohibits two people who are legal residents of the same state from being on the same party ticket. Now, it doesn't say that it cannot be done, but it does say that if it is done, then that party would forfeit the electoral college votes of the state, in this case, the state of Florida. So what does that mean? First of all, some have suggested, well, that's outdated. No, it's not outdated. It is still very much the Constitution and the law. Secondarily, it leaves out, unfortunately, Byron Donalds or even General Michael Flynn, and I don't think he's under consideration, but Governor Ron DeSantis. Now people say, well, Trump can just shift his legal residence to New York or New Jersey. No, he's not going to do that. He's being unfairly prosecuted in New York, even as we speak. And I have no doubt whatsoever that if he shifted his legal residence to New Jersey, they would hook up some new fabricated crime against him in the Garden State, which is a liberal bastion. So it really brings you back to the central question that in the selection of a vice president, criteria one remains the same. President Trump has to pick someone who has the experience and the judgment and the temperament and the wisdom to be president if, God forbid, he was unable to fill his term. And then secondarily, you need to find someone who is on the big picture issues of war, the right to life, guns, sealing our border. I think those are and of course the economy in terms of taxing and regulation. Those are the most important issues. You need to find someone who supports the America First agenda in every one of those areas. Now, as I've told you, President Nixon once told me, in looking for a running mate, don't look for someone who can help you, simply find someone who doesn't hurt you. I think that may be a little cynical, only because of the political dynamics of our current situation, Troy, and that is, although Donald Trump has a significant lead, in most cases just beyond the margin of error in all of these polls, I've yet to see a poll I respect, nationally at least, that has him over 50%. You have a very small pool of voters, virtually no voters, with no opinion of Donald Trump and Joe Biden. So opinions are pretty tightly set. And I think it's incumbent on President Trump to find some new votes. He has to make inroads somewhere. He doesn't need that many. He's just short of victory. He's on course to win victory. So I guess I believe something John Sears, who was Ronald Reagan's campaign manager previous to that, worked for President Nixon, said that politics is for risk takers. No risk, no reward. I think the president needs to do something to unify the party, to put forward a more bipartisan proposal, still within the context of America First. What's your thinking here on this vice presidential question, Troy?
Well, Roger, I wrote a piece on Slingshot just 2 days ago where I talked about this pretty much in depth, and it was talking about Tulsi Gabbard running for vice president. There's a few things within that piece that I wanted to ask your opinion about here because, you've seen a lot more of this than I have. One of the premises in that piece that I posed is that if Trump is going to win, which I think, the polls look pretty good right now, and he is, I would say, considered the favorite to win the 2024 presidency, if you're looking at the polling. Do you believe that whoever he selects as his vice president is ultimately in the best position to become president in 2028?
Well, that is certainly a valid question. First of all, if Trump, or I should say when Trump is restored to the White House, he will not be eligible to run for re-election. The Constitution says that no person shall serve more than 2 terms. It doesn't say that those terms have to be consecutive. So we're very much into the same dynamic that we had only once in our country. Grover Cleveland, a New Yorker, was elected president. Then he failed to be reelected, interestingly enough, in a disputed election in which his supporters believed that it was stolen from him. Then he was renominated in a vigorous contest for renomination, but then restored to the White House. Ironic that he indeed was, like Donald Trump, a New Yorker. We could be looking at the same scenario, but it really does mean that in terms of the party, whoever it is that Trump chooses will naturally get an enormous leg up in terms of being the next Republican nominee. Now, Mike Pence, had he made a different decision on January 6th, would have been the Republican nominee in 2024, most likely. Uh, I'm not an attorney. I think smart attorneys like David Schoen have come on this show and told us that they think the Electoral College Act is ambiguous. They think that it is conceivable, at least it's a honest legal argument that Mike Pence did have the authority to not to reject the electoral votes, but to send them back to the individual states for reexamination based on claims of voter fraud. Uh, Jack Smith, the special counsel, is telling us that that's a crime. Yet there was a piece in the Atlantic by a guy named Berman, who was actually saying, now that the Supreme Court has allowed Trump to be on every ballot and he's leading in the polls, if he wins, perhaps Democrats should refuse to certify his election. Now, wait a minute. You just said that that was a crime, but now you're saying maybe it is the course that Democrats should take. The hypocrisy of these people absolutely, positively boggles the mind. There's no internal consistency whatsoever. The real question, and we don't know the answer to this, and I confess to you I've not talked to him about it, is how the president sees this. In other words, he clearly understands, he has said he wants somebody who can run the country, someone who has the depth of experience and temperament and judgment to run the country. Uh, I believe the president believes that his legacy, meaning his agenda, is very important. Uh, these Super Tuesday primaries show us that he has brought a permanent change in the Republican Party. We are no longer the party of Wall Street. We're no longer the party of the millionaires or billionaires. We are no longer the party of the neocons looking to start a foreign war any place they can. So Trump's reformation of the Republican Party, I think, is indelible. I don't see us ever going back to being the elitist country club party we were. And the fact that the party has changed explains why we are attracting more African American votes, more Hispanic votes. The one area where we appear to be lagging is among women, where we have not made even incremental gains since 2020. This is yet another reason for the selection of a qualified woman running mate. Let me also say, however, Troy, it's very interesting when you look at the data regarding Hispanic Americans. For the first time ever, several polls this week nationally actually show Trump leading Biden among Hispanics. That historically has never happened in the country. There's never been an instance in which the Republican candidate for president ran ahead among Hispanic Americans ahead of the Democrats. So that is a sea change. It remains to be seen if it holds up, but it is a trend. And in polling, watching the trend is key. The direction of things is key. But here's the other interesting thing. If you examine those Hispanic voters who get their news in English, who speak Spanish, but get their news in English, is where Trump has made his greatest gains. Among those Spanish speaking voters, who get their news in Spanish, Spanish radio, Spanish cable, and so on. The Republicans and Trump have not made the same kind of gains. So to me, that means that the Republicans need to make greater use of Spanish language media in the upcoming campaign. But it is absolutely clear that whoever he picks is going to, in my opinion, end up as the titular head of the party.
Well, Roger, and that's why I think, and I think there's a lot deeper part of this that I'm not sure a lot of people maybe are looking at it this way or understanding, but the idea that Tulsi Gabbard, a former Democrat, and may I add, a vice chair of the DNC, I mean, this was this was no small cookie in the Democrat Party. Tulsi Gabbard was a serious Democrat player, and she left the party. She's become independent now. But you have to look at the timeline in which that's happened. And I'm a firm believer in that, historically, you look at what's happened after major events like World War II, there's a political realignment. World War I, there's a political realignment. A Spanish flu, political realignment, that's kind of wrapped up in World War I. But the every time that there's a massive catastrophic event that kind of reshapes the way things go, there's also a major political realignment. And I think selecting somebody of the Republican, establishment, or picking somebody along the lines of the last person, like Mike Pence, while that plays to Republican voters, it doesn't speak to the true realignment that's happened. And you talk about this a lot. On the key issues of war and peace, Tulsi Gabbard, a former Democrat, now agrees with Trump. And it speaks to a larger political realignment within the country. And in order to appeal to that, I think, the idea of having Gabbard on there as a ticket kind of speaks to that realignment. And I look at the Democrat Party and I say, I'm not so sure that these people understand that there has been a realignment. And I don't think, they're going in the way of saying, okay, we're going to pick Kamala Harris because she's black. I mean, let's call it what it is. She got picked because of the color of her skin. And in truth, she's not, she's Indian and Jamaican. So that's not, you can call that what it is. And you look at her parents, Roger. This is not somebody, she plays up the black thing. But my point is, they're going identity. And I think the Republicans have a chance in this election to make it a much more broader appeal, a much more broad appeal. And I think that will eventually win them this race. It's just about kind of speaking to that political realignment that's happened after COVID, after Ukraine, after 4 years of Biden. They need to hammer on that because it's extremely powerful and it's right on.
I think you make an excellent point. Now, look, I'm not oblivious to the fact that even when I just raise this and say on social media that it's intriguing. By the way, you can follow me on Twitter, now known as X, at Roger J. Stone Jr., Roger J. Stone Jr., or you can follow me at Truth Social at Real Roger Stone. It's interesting, again, by the way, before I get back to the larger point, that even last night at Mar-a-Lago, people said to me, I've sent you direct messages on Facebook, but I don't understand why you're not responding to me. In other cases, people said to me, where's the crypto that I bought from you? I never got the crypto that you sold me. Another person said, I was very interested in that job that you offered me on Facebook. Folks, I do not have a profile on Facebook. Anyone you are talking to on Facebook who claims to be Roger Stone is a charlatan. Now, I have reported this multiple times. I've also asked my lawyers to report it. It seems that as soon as the last fake Roger Stone is banned, is taken down, a new one, probably the same person or persons, pops back up. So no, I understand it's compelling. Whatever they do, they go to my Twitter feed, my X feed, and they immediately cross-post anything that I have posted on X. They use the same graphics in the header of my faux profile to give people the impression that this is me. And then I fear that in the direct messaging and in some of the product promotion, I have nothing to do with any of these products, whether they are internet programs or whether they are cryptocurrency. So please, folks, don't fall for this. I am banned for life on Facebook. I don't expect to ever have a real profile. The irony of this, of course, Troy, is if I set up a new legitimate profile tomorrow, we both know that it would be taken down immediately. So the
Absolutely.
faux Roger Stones, well, they get to do whatever they want. Meanwhile, if I sought to have a voice on that platform, I have no doubt it would be shut down in a record time. To go to your broader point, yes, we are in the middle of an important political realignment. This really started in 2016. There is a reason why Donald Trump wins when Mitt Romney did not. If you examine both, for example, Milwaukee and the Milwaukee suburbs, if you examine Detroit and the Detroit suburbs, if you example Philadelphia and the Philadelphia suburbs, there is a subset of working class voters who are not Republicans, most of whom voted for Barack Obama, but who in that election voted for Donald Trump. Part of that, of course, was the revulsion of the idea of a Clinton dynasty and the fact that Hillary Clinton, remains one of the most polarizing people in the country. That hasn't changed. Also, the fact that Donald Trump doesn't come across as elitist. Here's a man who's a billionaire, but has never lost the common touch. Now, Franklin Roosevelt was an aristocrat, but he was beloved by working class Americans. He addressed their fears at a time when the country had serious problems. Trump, I think, has this everyman quality, so that people in the middle class, working class people, not only can identify with Trump, but they see Trump as aspirational, meaning here's a guy who's made billions of dollars they're trying to steal from him, but billions of dollars nonetheless. If I were wealthy, well, that's how I'd want to live. The palatial home at Mar-a-Lago, the extraordinary apartment in New York City with the New York skyline, the private jets with his name emblazoned on the side, the private helicopter. Uh, these things speak of success. People, average Americans, ordinary Americans, they want success, and in Donald Trump, they see success. That's why the New York valuation case is so outrageous. It is an attempt to strip Trump of his that wealth that he has earned. Let's review this one more time. He borrowed money from banks. He put up collateral for those loans. The banks conducted their own diligence and their own evaluation of that collateral. They determined the loan was a good bet. They lent Trump the money. Trump paid them back at very handsome interest. They made about $40 million. No victim, no crime. But it's an attempt to strip Trump of his wealth, well, because it's Trump derangement syndrome and nothing more. All right, I'm afraid we have to leave it there. Let me thank my co-host, Troy Smith from slingshot.news. You definitely want to go to slingshot.news and subscribe there. He's got great content. And if you haven't gone by StoneZONE.com, you see it right there on the screen, StoneZONE.com. Please go and subscribe there. It's absolutely free. I'm Roger Stone. We are celebrating a historic Super Tuesday yesterday. In the meantime, God bless you. Godspeed. Remember to go to mypillow.com. And when you do, use promo code STONE. But in the meantime, thank you. God bless you. And we will see you tomorrow.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone. Where's Roger Stone?